Hey everyone, this is the notebooks meeting for the 29th of May. We always like to quickly highlight what Notebooks 2.0 is because that's why we're mostly here. If you don't know anything about it, check out this issue 85 from the Kubeflow Notebooks repo. It answers some basic questions, but effectively it's the next major version of Kubeflow Notebooks. It's going to be a lot more generic. It's going to be a lot more extendable for people to use for their own platforms and or their own products. It's very different. It's a complete rewrite. If people didn't know, um, it's got lots of cool features, but it aims to be the best way to run developer and AI like slash data development environments on a Kubernetes cluster that are, things like web-based IDEs effectively. But that's not the extent of it. There will be SSH capabilities, so you can connect Cursor to it and whatever else. But that's cool. Okay, let's quickly show the roadmap. Well, this is just a doc that we have, which tries to cover how we're not how we're progressing, but just like where we're aiming for in the first. Well, these are personas, and then we've grouped a couple of them into the first release. The main kind of personas are kind of end users, like AI practitioners and data practitioners, these people who use the notebooks, and then you've got the people who actually administrate the platform, things like, forcing people to use different GPUs if they're not using them properly or whatever else. And how you can do that in a really nice way. And obviously the first alpha, the goal is just to have the minimum, like the minimum valuable thing. Of course, alpha is a bit different to the first milestone. Like there's a short-term goal we've got as well. So by November is kind of the tentative thing, so that when we get on stage at KubeCon, we can say, hey, this is ready for you to try out. It maybe isn't super production ready at that point. Hopefully it is, but the goal is that we can have we can get on stage and say, hey, if you've got a notebook system on Kubernetes, we know it's painful. Here's the new solution that you can adopt. You can plug your own UI in if you really want to. You can use your own auth. You could use the rest of Kubeflow. You don't have to. Like these kind of things are. So for example, yeah. That's kind of where we're trying to aim, so that the minimum to get that possible to happen, right? That's the goal for before KubeCon, probably a couple months before. So we've got a couple of months for that. Okay, so I won't go through all these. Last part here is if anyone's in the meeting that's new and really wants to say hi quickly, they can do so. If not, you can either raise your hand or just type in the chat if you're not comfortable. Otherwise, I will. Oh, my pop up. There we go. Okay, that's great. I'll move on. So the KubeCon CFPs have closed for KubeCon North America. We did submit one, and so obviously that is up to the program committees, but I think it's pretty likely we'll get accepted, mainly because the one that we submitted mid-editor was for kind of introducing and sales pitching people on adopting Kubeflow Notebooks 2.0. Obviously, it remains to be seen if we get like a nice main stage slot or whether we get different slots. I think we'll probably get a pretty good slot, but there's also separately, obviously, KubeCon. As long as we get to graduate before then, Kubeflow, sorry, we should get a keynote slot as well, but not necessarily me or this project, just overall Kubeflow, which would be very exciting. So we'll probably from both of those, we'll end up having a lot of people. So I want to have stuff ready for that time. That's kind of my, because I think everyone's goal is to make Kubeflow a neutral standard set of tools that everyone can adopt for their products that run AI and stuff on Kubernetes, both users and platforms. Okay, if you have CFPs for other, sorry, there is technically also at the same time as KubeCon, I believe there is a Kube, like one of these. Well, this is actually separate again. There's a virtual symposium, but I don't know what the timeline on this is. Like this is very soon. I don't know what's happening with this. But there is a KubeCon in a uh, Kubeflow side event, which you can also submit schedules to if you're not, which are much more likely to be accepted, obviously, because it's all about Kubeflow. And it's just like half a day kind of co-located event. You do have to have a ticket for the main event, so make sure your company gets that soon if you're not a speaker. And yeah, awesome. Anyone else got anything community updates they want to add before we move on to no anything? Okay. Notebooks 1.0, yep, so graduation, let's cover that in the Tuesday meetings. We have every second Tuesday, we have the the graduation stuff, but we are working on it. Is anyone from AMD here who wants to give an update on the thing? If not, I will. I think I might have I pushed them back a little bit because they proposed a solution to the problem which would have resulted in us customizing Kubeflow notebooks to solve their problem. I think they can make a better solution than that. So hopefully they come back with something that works for everyone. Uh, I don't want to be making, accelerator specific solutions to problems that are driver levels. Okay, we are still migrating the code. Let's listen. We are going to keep doing that, obviously, but we'll talk about that in another meeting, I think. Let's move on to the Notebooks 2.0. So, Jenny, you've proposed a logo. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So let me see here. I have a potential logo to share, and yeah, just adding that to the document based on that conversation that we had in a thread where editor said we have a few paths here for how we want to handle this. So yeah, just wanted to bring up like a potential proposal to the community, and then maybe the CNCF can help us sort of adjust as we see fit here. So let me see if I can add this to the chat here.
You should be able to paste it into the doc, actually, if you have. How do you? I don't. Depends on how you've got it. But if it's an
Oh, great.
SVG, that might not work if it's an SVG.
It's
But
a PNG. So
that should
I'll
work.
throw it into the chat here because it's kind of just like a rough estimate of like something that we might want just based on the shapes here. I'll put it in the chat, but this is just sort of just a rough idea. So just curious to get feedback here for how we want to handle something like this. So this falls under like the hexagonal like design of like what Kubeflow is currently doing with model registry. Kind of aligns with like the new icon that model registry has just come up with. I can link that in the doc there as well. Here, let me
Oh,
just
I
share.
put it in there. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, I guess as far as like the iconography and like the image for what we want to show for notebooks, just curious, want to open that up to the floor. Is like an actual notebook icon like something that we're looking for here? Do we want to show something else that represents this better with Kubeflow? What do we think here?
Um, in terms of like motifs, I mean, of course, we're going to propose a lot of motifs. You know what I mean? Like, I think this is kind of like, I remember the first discussions for the Kubeflow logo. There was a lot. Uh, so I expect we'll get a lot of proposals. The only thing I do want to highlight is that it's not. I do, one thing I think going more abstract, but still in the Kubernetes Kubeflow world might be beneficial because especially if we rebrand to workspaces, like that's my only kind of concern, right? Which is like we want some continuity there, being like, okay, there's going to be workspace types that are not only notebooks, right? There will always be some kind of, because the word notebook obviously is very Jupyter, right? But things like cursor or other IDEs that might come after it, like VS Code isn't really a notebook, you know what I mean? But it is supported even by it, which is kind of why we moved to the idea of workspaces. But then also that kind of unlocked this idea of saying a workspace can contain multiple IDEs, or it could contain like a Spark cluster or something, right? Like it kind of so I'm not against like again I didn't this is like having something to grant anything is just a great first step. So I'm not going to put any cobalt or anything. I think we're going to have a lot of discussions around things. I do wonder if the blue should be the same blue as Kubeflow or like things like that. Even if like
Oh,
there's like
absolutely.
yeah yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who has like the design suite to be able to like modify the colors or how I don't have those tools. So I guess that was my next question, like we would
What
bring this
tools would
to.
you
Like,
be so in terms of designers, most people would make these as an SVG with like when I've designed logos in past, we usually you can use if you're open source only, you can use Inkscape or you can use one of the Adobe suites, or you could just use anything else you want. We will need an SVG obviously, and we will need it to work in both white, black, and color. So effectively and it also should work as a small icon as well. So I do worry that that logo almost certainly wouldn't work when it's 24 pixels.
oh yes, yes.
You know
This
what
is
I mean?
this is just a
Yeah,
proposal.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I guess
Like
when it comes
because there's
like
the icon, there's like a logo form which will have words, and then there's like an icon form as well. And so the icon form needs to work when it's like, okay, these days you can get away with 48 pixels, but 48 pixels is still not a lot. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of and so even if it's a bit blurry, when it's super small, like that's when it's like tiny I favicon kind of size. But anyway, who knows? It's great. It's great to. I'm very excited to see what comes. But yeah, let's keep thinking about it. So, of the proposals, do you have do you want to uh kind of make more proposals, or do you want to connect with the CNCF, or how do you want to do this?
So yeah, that was my next question. So I think it makes sense probably. This is what we're doing here based on what Etta was saying. Like someone from the working group proposes a logo, and then we can ask for CNCF like has like a better, well-designed version, like or a designer on CNCF to for some logo proposals. So who would be like a good point of contact on that team to sort of kick off that conversation? Is there someone
So I
that you
can
can?
so we just need to raise a service desk ticket and to see what their kind of timeline is on availability and stuff, but we can that they should be able to communicate with us on the Slack, you know. But um
Is it the same team, like Francisco and Andre? Is it the same guys
no,
who
so
were working on?
that's internal to Kubeflow, right? So
Oh,
like so
oh, I
CNCF
see.
means like actually the CNCF. Like so the CNCF has is like a 501c. I don't know that for a fact. The Linux Foundation is a 501c. I don't know if CNCF is. But okay. Um so they have staff, is what I'm trying to say, and I believe they might have contracted designers as well. Um, I mean, I think that I think we should take a stab at it ourselves first. You know what I mean? I think if we have the time to, I don't want to be wasting anyone's time to be thinking about this when we could just have a professional designer. We could even pay a professional designer. You know what I mean? Like it's not. Well, I mean, the CNCF can do that, help us do that, but like, um, I think it's one of those things that we don't necessarily know exactly what we want either, but there is uh that's also a different hexagon, isn't it, to the Kubeflow hexagon? It is.
I think it might be. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess
Oh, wait,
I don't
one,
have the
two,
design
three,
suite to
four, five, six, seven. Yes, it's actually a heptagon. But
perfect.
uh,
So I think this is the CNCF if they can put their hands on this and get
well, so they
it
didn't
get it
design the
looking.
original logo, to be clear. Some
Oh
random,
really?
so no, to be clear, the original logo, CNCF only owned Kubeflow for the past like 2 years. Maybe not even that, right? Like so the original Kubeflow logo, which now is hard to find that thread because it was causing so many problems that I hid a lot of the messages on the thread on the Google results. But but this is like a process. Like like so I expect that yeah, it's but at very least we can't really do anything without an SVG, like or at least a vector, it needs to be a vector, right? That's kind of the most important thing. But of course, don't make the vector like I'd expect that we'd have some like most people when they're designing things will do a basic mock-up first, you know, and then we kind of agree on some conceptual ideas and then make a clean, nice version of it. Um,
That
but
makes
I guess,
sense.
yeah, I guess,
And oh,
yeah, if you've got
sorry.
ideas, I guess maybe that's what we should do. At minimum, we should just create a bunch of ideas and then present that to the designers of someone, like either internally at Red Hat or another company, or to the CNCF and be like, hey, here's some ideas we had. Find things in this universe that might be better. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's a path if we don't want to try and come to it, and then we can, you know, have a vote on what we think is the nicest and things like that that they
You
come
know,
back with.
oh sorry. Oh, Andy, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to jump in there?
There you go.
Or oh,
Unintentional, sorry.
oh, no worries. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Matthew. That sounds good. So I guess as far as do you know who might have access to like the SVG resources or like the vector
Oh no,
files
those are all
that we can
public.
use?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are
So,
all. Oh, great.
so the first thing is if you just want to have millions of CNCF logos, they all exist in the CNCF logos GitHub or whatever it is. Actually, no, this is probably the only ones on. Yeah, no, there's a lot. No, this is for CNCF itself. Projects. Maybe it's under this one. Yes. Okay. Oh, didn't. This is not right. Uh, CNCF artwork. Okay. Oh no, it is here. Yeah. So here's literally thousands of logos from everything in the CNCF depending on its stage. Uh, okay, they've changed the repo a little bit, but like so you got graduated. So here's the top level projects, and obviously you have Kubeflow's ones in here too. For some of them are a bit painful because of how we submitted it. I do have, if you just want the clean version, I did put one copy of it in the because I often need to use them for the website. I did put it just in this folder here as like for the Kubeflow ones. Uh, so that they're all super consistent, just for my own purposes, and these are all FBGs, mainly so that we can reference them in other places and embed them here, for example. But I'll link both of these in the chat, or I'll link it in the doc actually.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. Perfect.
Reference logos from CNCF.
And then just to confirm, like as far as like making a service desk ticket or kind of reaching out to those designers, how to go about doing that? Like, is
So
there
if once we're ready, I can add anyone to a ticket. Like I can just, and we can just add emails to a ticket. I
oh,
don't know.
so you would open it?
I mean, any of the leads can open it, I think, but not everyone is onboarded to that platform because there's just like a lot of people involved in the project. But I don't think they might have to pay for each person or something. But like it's like a Jira, not Jira. No, it's just a custom thing. I don't even know. It's like you might already have an account, right? Do you? Oh,
I
okay.
don't have access to that. No.
Okay, yeah. Um, uh, Incubating graduate sandbox. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I mean, so it should that's I think we don't want to involve them until we have our own brand ideas first. You know what I mean? Like, because again, what do you do when you talk to a designer? You have like you they don't just it's I think I want to have some input from the community into like, oh, even if we don't have the hard ideas, it's like, oh, do we want to follow a cutout approach like Kubeflow does, or do we want to do anyway? I think we can move on, but yeah, Andy.
Sorry, just a real quick comment on that. You'd mentioned like a rebranding thing, which, abstractly, these refer to the same concepts, but I think, like notebooks would gravitate someone towards an image much, potentially much more differently, kind of like as like Jenny's presented it. So do you know, is there any like timeline or decision on if like such a rebrand would be undertaken, and we probably want to do that before KubeCon or like any
No,
other?
definitely not. So the reason
Okay,
why I effectively stopped the rebrand previously because I thought it was a bad idea when you don't have a new product, and also because I want Notebooks 2.0 to be clearly a continuity of 1.0, and then have workspaces be the feature, and then if that feature becomes the product to some extent, I want that to become the name, right? Like, so that's
got it.
kind
Okay.
of, and again,
Thank
I'm
you
not,
for that
I
explanation.
don't, like, if it turns out that it's fine to have a name that's not perfectly descriptive, there's millions of examples of this in the world, but like, if it turns out where it's like the name workspace really sticks or something like that, then it depends on how people end up referring to it, right? Because
Okay.
notebooks,
Yep.
I think for really new users might send a message that it's only Jupyter, right? And especially as we start playing with things that are like Spark clusters, really that's really breaks down quite a lot, right? You know what I mean? Like where it's like that's really not quite sending the full message of the capabilities of the product. But again, I would expect this to be mid next year. You know what I mean? I don't think this would be anytime soon. Post GA is what I mean. Okay. Yes. Anyway, let's move on so we can talk about the actual product. Anything else you want to add there, Jenny?
No, that sounds great. Thanks so much for the great discussion. Appreciate it.
Cool. Let's do. So, the stand-ups we can come back to, but let's quickly go over the epics. So we have this new epic system which we have owners for each of the big tasks, and the goal of these epics is to track our progress towards our goals, and the goals are right now to get to the first deployable minimum, not usable necessarily, but just like you can actually create a notebook. Well, that's what it says there, right? You can select a works from a workspace kind. You can create a workspace. You can you don't even necessarily need to be able to connect to it in this first phase. Just you can create it. Uh, you can mount a secret. You can mount a volume. And you can start it and stop it. Things like editing aren't in that first goal, but they are tracked down here. So so we're kind of ordering this in a strange way. So maybe we should actually order them differently. But since editor isn't here, maybe we'll let Polo start this time if he's here.
Hey, yes, I'm here.
Okay. So starting in
So,
or whatever. What's your epic about?
so for this epic, we are aiming to. Sorry, let me open it up. Because I was reading the screen share. Okay, now I have it open here. So for this epic, we aim to be able to manage update running workspaces, which is basically start, stop, and editing a workspace while it's already existing. Since last week, we didn't have a lot of updates on it. There is progress. For instance, NGSPR on the back end is getting a lot of changes and reviews. And the front end for start stop workspace was already merged during last week. For edit workspace, it's pretty much the same status. So we have front end prepared already, but the objective for the back end for this task is for another sprint. So we were just anticipating a few of the UI tasks there. That's basically the summary.
Awesome. Anything that's blocking you right now, or?
No, for that epic, no. That's
okay. And this backend to start and stop is part of the initial task. So like, what's blocking that particularly?
It's if we have time at the end of this call, I can have a quick discussion on that, Matthew. It is getting reviews. We've just been iterating on response schemas, and so it's working through the review process right now. Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Since Ed is not here, I guess let's talk about the deploying of Notebooks 2.0, if you have that, or have we made any changes there, or?
No changes. I know there is we just assigned someone from Red Hat's going to start to look into containerizing the front end. There's a PR open for containerizing the back end. I haven't played around with it yet. It generally looks good. The one difference here is the back end depends on the controller. And so there's a little bit of like, we're passing now like a parent level directory as the Docker build context, so we can access it. And I saw that they were doing the go mod replace directive to make sure that works, depending on if it's being built locally or in container. So I need to verify some of that, but I think we're getting very close to containerizing the front or the back end, and then work on the front end was going to start soon on that. And then I know the developer that was doing the backend containerization has just started to play around with looking to define a workload manifest as well. That obviously has to build upon the last work, but we're starting to get some traction there. And I have today, tomorrow, really want to start to pull this, play with it, and take a closer look at it. I've just kind of scanned it to make sure it looked directionally correct. So decent progress going there to make that be able to actually get these running on a in cluster.
Yeah, I did forget about the fact that the context would need to be up a folder. That is interesting. Yeah, passing ... Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Okay, cool. We'll see what happens.
But yeah, I want to I've just kind of done what you did and quickly look. So I want to play around with it and see, but it's there, and I know that the developers using this to bootstrap to get a jump start on then defining the actual manifest. So making some and work on the front end is going to be kicking off shortly. So we're getting some traction there.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think they need to be separate. Yeah, they need to be separate. Yeah. Okay, cool. From the controller, I mean. Okay, and then the front end, I guess, is again, this is not for the first Joel, but I'm just interested. Does anything happen? And so, is there similarly? You said there was work happening on the front end.
Oh yes, I forgot to. I'm sorry, I forget. There's so many places I need to update links, so I did not update our working group note. Apologies, but yes. So then this will be the front end, and this Noah developer.
The source
as you
of truth
see
can be the epic. That's fine. It's just
okay.
This is. I mean, we probably shouldn't even be using that.
I mean, I will get this updated. I had an event this morning, so I wasn't as prepared normally on these things. So I will get these up because I do use this to plan to remember what issues I still need to open and stuff. So I'll make sure this is updated after the call.
Okay. And so other than obviously these are longer term ones here.
Those are longer term, yes.
Yeah. Oh, this connecting to the backend is interesting. This seems like it is actually important for the first feature. So what is there a feature link here for this, or where is that being tracked right now?
It is not being tracked. This was a note to myself, and we'll need to figure this out. But it's like, we do have this connect front end to back end work that is maybe closed, but it was really around just like locally, can we get these services to talk to one another? I think this is kind of an extension or incremental build out to that of the final state that like when these things are running in cluster, they can communicate with each other. So I'll get that. I'll get something written up there.
They don't actually need to communicate with each other, just to be very clear. Don't confuse yourself there. What happens is the user makes a request that gets routed to the back end. The intersecting point is the front end browser. Like, so the front end is running in a web browser. It's a JavaScript app,
Sorry,
right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah, 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 yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just to yes, sorry, but yeah, to make sure that it's working locally. That's a reminder to me that once we get this stuff deployed, just to make sure there's not something weird there.
Yeah, because I don't think we probably won't use proxying, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't think the front end will proxy to the back end because that would needlessly tie you to the back. I don't know.
Yes,
It's like we've done that on we did that on like some other components. Like I think the dashboard does that, and I don't think that's a good idea. Because it's safer just for the user to talk directly to the REST API, which can be independently scaled, and things
yes,
like that.
yes.
Okay. It also hurts the caching as well. Otherwise, how do we do caching? Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'll connect front end to back end is the wrong thing there. This is really like communication in cluster when these things are containerized and running, and maybe this is whatever service objects or anything else
Well, I think it's
to
more
make
like
that happen.
it's more like, I mean, however this happens, that's all simple. I think the bigger thing is just we need to be as quickly as possible testing the front end with the back end as its only or really main source of information
Yes,
rather than any mocks, just because it's very easy to develop without understanding the actual possibilities of the back end rather than like I don't know if that's happened, but I mean I don't want to accidentally waste a lot of time developing for a backend API that we can't make, for example, or like that assumes something about pagination when we don't do that, or well, who
right.
knows? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else that's blocking you for deploying?
No, I think stuff's moving forward there, so we're good.
Okay, for the repo and developer setup, which I guess do you want to overview what that is?
Yeah, so this is kind of like just a grab bag of random stuff around kind of, I think, maturation of the code base. So, you see a lot of like, there's like, 4 or 5 very different things in here. Been going back and forth with Matthew, good discussions on some management stuff. So you see this 325, 327 sub issue, leveraging GitHub sub issues through GitHub Action. To work this, we did an ad hoc review last week. Feedback was to re-implement this as a JavaScript client, so I got that, I think, working in good standing. There's some feedback, Matthew, you had gave on the GitHub issue templates. I plan on getting that reworked as well. I was on holiday I was just back yesterday, so I didn't get as much done there. So project management is one issue. There's general kind of bootstrap testing improvements we're looking at. And I have a group of developers based in Israel that have been doing nice work to really kind of start to ramp up on this. This is really just like, we're not instituting code coverage checks or anything. It's just starting to get, my general goal here was let's at least have test files with the right, sweet, wrappers before afters defined. So as new contributors come in, it's easier to add a test because like the general infrastructure is there and they're literally just defining individual files. So there's kind of bootstrap work there, and then kind of the other, I'll say, 3-headed monster here is with tilt work. I know as time allows, Matthew, you have that core PR. Someone had reached out through Slack and has been talking. I've been talking with them on the CNCF channel or the workspace. They don't have Go experience. They want to contribute, so I owe them a write-up by today or tomorrow. I was going to have them look to start to play around with extending tilt. They, looked at it while I was on holiday. They said it seemed to be in their wheelhouse, so I figured this could be a good idea. I told them just to branch off the existing branch right now to look at bringing in back end into there. So nothing blocked on that, Matthew. But like I said, I'd like to. I don't want to give everything to.
I do want to get.
I don't want to give everything to Red Hat people either. So this seemed to carve out a nice place since this person, reached out. To get them at least in the system contributing in some meaningful way. So I'll work with.
Are they a student or are they a researcher? Or are they a employee of someone? Or
let me go back. I honestly don't even remember.
I think they reached out to me and I pointed them to the public channel because I didn't want. I was like I can't explain everything.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was happy with. Let's see here. So they did not ask their background.
That's fine. It's always interesting to know, mainly just from a. There's security reasons, but also like just like to know what to expect, right? If they're a student, there's a level of expectation that's different to, and even a researcher, right, from like a professional staff level plus.
Oh, so no, I think they introduced this as Bhakti, and it says I'm a back-end software engineer, experience building scalable systems. So not a student.
Like, that's what I expected, right? That's kind of why I pointed it. I was like, students, I usually say like, yeah, like come to the meeting, see what you can do. actual, because while we're building the initial stuff, you really need engineers working on it, just because like so many decisions get made early on that really will
Yes.
haunt us forever if we don't make them. And it's like if it, and it just and it's I mean, for some engineers, it'd probably be a very building experience to be like have their ideas, really critiqued by professional engineers, but like it might just not be that productive from our perspective. Yeah, so but you're welcome to contribute if you're a student and you know about engineering, of course, but it's just
Oh, and then one other thing I do want to call out, Matthew, because we had discussed this with Eder. This is
yes.
this task number 380, backend can read data served by NV test. I'm having this developer do a very minimal implementation so we can just kind of like discuss if this is a direction we want to go or not, right? Which basically says like you can run with NV test as a backend versus like your normal Kubernetes remote, and there's like a feature flag to toggle this. So anyways, I think the developer is very close to getting a PR open on this. The NV test, how much has been invested in building that out is minimal, because I wanted to keep the PR focused on like this core decision of, you can kind of use NV test as a backend.
I'm pretty sure it's env test. I'm pretty sure it's env test.
M test. Sorry, I'm yep.
You're thinking you're thinking in GPU land. Anyway, uh, okay. So yeah, I mean that I'd be interested to see what that is. Obviously, I don't want to let stuff like this distract us unless it actually helps us. But if someone's willing to figure it out, that's good. But I also don't like. But again, like I really almost want to block that until I'm fine with people making PRs. But like I almost want to block that until we have the front end talking to the actual back end. You know what I mean? Because it's like I don't want this two modes to conflate that. Like we don't really have anything until the front end actually talks to the REST APIs of the back end. And if the back end doesn't talk to the actual controller, then what's happening?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep. Yes.
Like
No, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not against building this for the future. I'm not sure it's necessary for the first goal, but if they don't have something better to work on, that's fine too.
Yes, and so this is much more of an exploratory thing, but completely agreed, not critical for the first round. I just wanted to kind of highlight that.
Yes, cool. Anything else that's needing to happen for the first goal, I guess? So obviously these epic ones are very much quality of life, and we'll try and get them in. They're not blocking, I guess.
Yeah, so none of this stuff I think
tests I think are definitely not blocking either, but they're close to blocking. Where it's like, and also there's some stuff where it's like clearly we need to refactor the tests in pretty much everywhere a little bit. Not in terms of like there is some testing, but we want to make the friction of adding a new test low. So like if you have a new capability, say it's in the controller especially, where it's like, oh, here's my setup, here's my environment setup, here's my actions post setup. At each step, how do I efficiently like normally this is done with a table where you have functions which are like setup function, and there's a default one which just takes like a list of YAML, and then there's obviously automatic teardown. And then there's like an intermediate one where it passes you a Go test, whatever it's called, the Go testing framework, no, not complete. Anyway, where it passes you one of those contexts, whatever the one that is for controller runtime, and then you just like make a bunch of changes and assertions, and it's always a bit of a boast, but like especially for the controller, where there's whenever we come across something weird or where we just have a particularly complicated integration test, not necessarily unit test, because unit tests are pretty clear how you would do them, I think. But for integration tests where there's just like try many different combinations of things which result in different things. Like, oh, the secret is like, and then it makes it easier than like not necessarily sequencing it, where it's like, oh, we try delete the secret, rather than like, oh, we just tried to create it without the secret, rather than we created it, because it's right now we end up just piling the tests into the existing like flow, and I worry that if there's some sequential nature to it, it might actually not be testing the thing that we actually are expecting to test.
Right, and there's a lot of, I mean, not a lot, but there are a few disclaimers in the code right now that say like, this is relying on this very specific sequential ordering, you know what I mean? Be mindful. And so, I think there's, like I said, my first pass here was let's get a better idea of coverage to hopefully identify patterns. And then, I have something that I haven't written up yet around refactoring out common testing patterns, to your point of making it easier to contribute and making sure people aren't shooting themselves in the foot. as
There's
they,
definitely backend and controller separation here. I mean, there's a PR
yes.
that I have for the backend, no, for the controller, which will add some more tests, but it just adds one example of running a full test integration suite again without, because like effectively for the status field, and I only tested one of the status fields, so like I really do need to try and get that merge today. Anyway, okay. I'm sorry for that. Hopefully because that will show an example. But the problem is it is quite complicated because it's like, how do we're gonna still need to do sequential stuff, but yeah, my only concern is these tests might take a really long time in some cases because they're all sequential. But
Right.
okay. Anything
Ooh.
blocking that other than anything overall on this?
No, I think for this stuff, it's all going. Stuff is either getting written or in various states of review, so there's nothing there to
Well,
raise.
except this meeting needing to merge this, obviously. I'm blocking this one accidentally, which I should.
That's okay, but
That's
it's
my
not
fault.
holding
That's
up anything
completely my
else. But no,
fault.
yeah, it's all good. Yep.
Well, it's kind of holding up other people, but yeah, I will make up that a priority for me. Okay. Eda's not here. This one. I don't know if anyone has this, but this one is the just being able to use it, I guess, like with libraries choosing images and other things like that, and so obviously you need to be able to create workflows. You need to be able to. I do wonder why creation is not under. It feels very similar to editing, right? I don't know why that one's under here rather than under updating and managing, but I guess these are all kind of sure. I think maybe this should be renamed then if it's who knows. It's unclear. These kind of similar. Uh, so, does anyone else know what's happening right now, the current status of like the creation wizard and things like that? Let's see.
So for the front end, the creation wizard is done and merged already.
Okay. Is it? But I assume it's not connected to a backend.
Guilherme, I think it is already, right?
Oh, because the create API was existing, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's already.
But is it using it? Definitely not mocked.
Yes. Well, so we have that one with the backend secrets PR not merged. We kind of fake out and just drop the secrets you submit there, but everything else is live. Like I said, and then that start pause API for the backend that I have, the UI is relying on that, but we haven't merged that yet. It's in review as it should be right now. But other than that, there are live calls are happening. So yeah, so I think we're in a pretty good state there. We still want to do the evolution, obviously, of having the front end leverage the generated Swagger JSON, and then all the life. We have to make sure certain tests kick off when that changes, so we don't break stuff. But I think we can improve that relationship to have UI, have backend dependencies kind of reflected in there. But live calls going end to end on the create flow, that is happening now.
So other than those things that we just talked about, is there anything blocking? Again, I'm not expecting it to be anywhere close to the final product in this goal, obviously, but like, are we close to having? Is there anything else that would block us from being able to create a workspace from scratch right now using a front? If you run them all locally and you connect it to a real cluster, is there anything other than secrets, and pausing and stopping isn't related to that, but other than the secrets, like volume creation, for example, we don't have an API for that, right? Is that?
So yeah, sorry, that's a very, very good point. This story relies on existing volumes, existing secrets, right? So like with those disclaimers in place, ignoring start, pause, and
But
controller.
Even then, you need to be able to list volumes, right? Like presumably we need an API for list existing volumes then.
Well, so we cheat, and it's a text box today, so we have circumvented that, right? So as an MVP to do, it works. But yes, all of these other points you highlight are gaps from like a real serious UX.
Yeah, I mean, even I do worry that I think there's some front end work that can take place if we agree on the backend API for listing volumes, because otherwise it's going to highlight some things to the front end people that they need to think about, which is like, what does it mean to mount a volume, right? Like you and I might have some
right, which is a weird persona.
Like,
yeah,
we
there's
know,
a persona
we know what that,
conflict.
If you work with containers, you know what that looks like. But if you're a front end developer, you might not, right? Like it's like you need to mount it. There's like permissions that you need to think about. there's like mount paths. And so right now we don't have any restrictions on that on the controller, but maybe we should on the front end. I don't know.
Well, and
Right?
I
Like
think even from a discovery perspective, right, Matthew, like, do we like just any secret and any volume is fair game? Do we want like labels or something there to restrict this versus other uses the customer's cluster might be? So like, I think how we discover these.
in the future maybe, but right now, if a secret is valid for mounting on a pod, meaning it's in the same namespace, because that's the only way it could be valid. We're
Right.
assuming that people are using namespaces for their profiles. So,
Okay.
like that, for better or worse, that's how we choose to do team isolation. So that does mean you'll be able to see every secret in the namespace. But if you can mount, if anyone is capable of creating a pod, and most environments with notebooks are going to allow users to create pods, they can see any secret in that namespace anyway. There's no
Right.
concept in Kubernetes of a pod not being able to mount a secret. So um, like effectively, this is fine, right? And what I'm saying. And so, but from both the secret mounting and the volume perspective, I think we do need to get list secret APIs and list volume APIs at least, because those are much easier.
And
Than
with volumes, do you at least for now the same approach? Because I'll get these tickets written up
Yeah,
and,
and
and
because like
look
the
at
thing is,
that. But
the backend needs to expose information like what kind of volume is it? What kind of so that means it might even need to do another get against the storage class, for example, or to get its API drive to get its CSI driver, you know, or um and so and then also we can't change the permissions at the volume mount level. We can make it read only, but we can't make it like say you have an NFS or Lustre or some other remote file system. Um, there's another one as well I want to add that this one's critical. Is that for a lot of things, mounting images as volumes, which are not even in the cluster, is the way to distribute terabytes worth of model weights. So like Kubernetes, as of recently, allows you to mount an OCI compliant image as a volume. So when you click mount volume, there should be a couple of options. The first one is like create new. Then there's maybe the first one is maybe mount existing volume in a namespace. Then then it says, is that even valid to do? We can think about what that means. How do you want to mount it? Do you want to mount it? And so now this is where we come back to like the FS group concept. We don't really, not every NFS, like NFS drivers don't necessarily support it. Like I know Amazon's one doesn't. So it might not even be readable, right? And these kind of experiences are quite bad for the user. So we need to give the admins a way to resolve that problem if they know that they're going to have it, while also not making their problem worse. But I think the three volumes that I can just immediately on my head think of are create, mount existing, and mount existing in this case should potentially, maybe there should just be a third one, which is image, right? Because again, we also only can enable that feature if the Kubernetes API is 31 or later. I think. But also to be clear, that needs to be added in the controller. No, yeah, the controller might need an update because anyway, we're wasting time. But point is, the controller probably needs an update as well. So let's track that. I don't think that's necessary for the first one, but it's pretty
no, but I think
close.
at least to get this stuff written up that way, at least
Well,
getting
that's the
issues
thing.
out, people can comment on and yeah.
Like what I'm saying is making it a text box has hidden a large amount of work items. That's what I'm trying to
Yes.
say. Like, and that we should
Yes.
be giving them that are priority enough that they should take precedence over anything else because they're functional requirements. Like that. It's like front-end developer should be developing, even if it looks terrible, the ability to choose an image, the ability to choose a volume that exists and how to mount it and where to mount it and validate that it was valid. Anyway, and also create a new one as well. That should also be discussed as well. But okay. Anything else here? Connecting Hashad, sorry.
No worries at all. I was also actually on PTO, so I really didn't catch up. But I see Eder has already moved few of these things. I was going through the epic to understand where we are. The workspace list kind of bit is partially covered, and there are some parts remaining in that first feature, which I'll try to track through and try to see people who are assigned to it, reach out to them, how it works out. I'm still like, that's something which I'm reevaluating, so I need to get on to that. I think the
Interesting
second
that workspace list ended up under here, but sure, I guess.
here, yeah, I think it's more to do with like how connections will work for each of the workspaces, and just wanted to see like probably listing would somehow impact it. I guess that's how.
I guess we can also add
Uh,
metrics or whatever. Maybe we need to rename this from like connecting to like connecting and discovering, state of the notebook as well. Right? I don't know. It's kind of
yeah.
so like the overview page. Anyway, sorry, I was interrupting.
No worries. I think that's what I need to do. I need to also touch base a little bit more with Andy to get to know where we, like as Andy explained on his bits of where the deployments are happening. Need to check on those things with respect to this. The
Some of these things you're going to
STO.
run into, I just want to highlight one thing, is that you're going to run into the fact that for some reason the mockups that we had weren't quite up to date. So like we did some annotations, but they never got propagated into the mockup, and then the mockup got shared without the annotations. So like stuff like this is very strange. Like this should be a human readable name here, and
Yeah.
I don't fully understand how what the heck that column even is, right? And then like memory usage and CPU. So I think these are ones that you could potentially focus on in the short term. I think Andy and I were talking about metrics discovery, so maybe you should have a quick chat with Andy about that. But
Yeah.
so like maybe the things I would focus on here are of course connection, which is kind of already there. It's mainly just about the thing that you're about to talk about with the
Mm.
uh
The STO stuff
but
and
then
the
there's also some
virtualization.
backend APIs and controller potential APIs that need to be created to enable metrics and maybe logs as well. But just metrics extraction first. And I also want to propose pulling GPU metrics somehow as well, but that's a separate. Again, I just want to get GPU power. I want to get potentially GPU. Yeah, like because it kind of is pod config, but it is something that we can actually discover, which is how many GPUs are connected to this instance. But I want to get like the third metric here I want is power draw of each GPU. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
the third, because I think that's the best proxy of usage of the GPUs that it has. Of course, what happens if you've mounted a MIG? Who knows? What does that even mean? Like a partial but I don't know how that attributes it in the DCGMX model. But anyway, let's yes.
Yeah,
So is
I've
there anything
taken
blocking
these
this piece?
into. Yeah, I need to evaluate if there is. To be honest, like I am the one who is blocking it. I believe right now, so I
I
need to
know
get
that there's,
onto
so I can tell
this.
you
Yeah.
one block is the CPU
Yeah.
metrics, the home vol. I don't know if this is even up to date, to be honest.
hmm I think I'll try to find these things and probably attach it again.
Yeah, maybe need to reach out with Edo, I guess, on that partially.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is up to date. Does anyone know if this is up to date? This mockup or where we would find the latest mockup of it? Who knows? Okay, anyway, your connect, so this bottom piece here, which is, yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
This is the
Harshad,
one.
I'll start a talk with me, you, and Eder, and we can drive on that in the next couple days. So at least we understand what the source of truth is that you can kind of act on, and I can
Yeah.
share some of the stuff that me and Matthew talked about metrics wise as well. So you're caught up there.
So to get the first goal though, right? It's like the first thing unquestionably is getting this connect idea working, which is like that's a really big piece of work, which is around networking. But there is also some tasks that the backend engineers can work on as long as we don't want to block them from starting work on this piece, like to enable. But not every column here is actually going to stay, right? I don't even know if this is the current columns, to be honest. And then we've got the sidebar as well when you click on a specific row where we want to pull metrics like pull at least the YAML for the workspace, but then also stuff like I don't know, other things.
Yeah. Absolutely. For the
So there's
STO
two
stuff.
very big tasks, is what I'm saying. Like I'm worried that
Yeah.
we might need to split this.
Absolutely. So I'll try to evaluate a few of these by this week, and then Monday we can probably recheck on if we want to split them up into two.
Because like then the
Go from
connecting
there.
piece, like I'm
Yeah.
assuming we haven't had chance to discuss how the networking implementation works.
Yeah, that is something you mentioned last time. After PT, I couldn't reach out. I'll try to reach out to you by like
It's not
I'll do
about
some
me
more homework.
necessarily.
But
It's more
yeah,
like, are we
and just
doing? So we're gonna do SDO, yes. But then the question is, do we have what is the generic approach that we provide? Is it just is it the gateway API from Kubernetes? I think it kind of has to be. But then we've got the question of like authentication and
Yeah.
other things, right? Where like we can hard depend on Istio to begin with, but I would worry that if we don't this like have that discussion before we can do it either way. But like if we don't have that discussion, I don't think this PR is actually correct, by the way. As this is the one I think it is.
Yeah.
But
You mentioned it.
yeah, I think this is not how you need to install Istio, for example. But the like definitely will add virtual once that blocks us from the next goal. The next goal will be actually connecting, obviously. Then we can talk about it. But I do want to have had discussions about our non-Istio support
Okay.
as well. But that's really complex because it fits into like there's two distinct reasons we use Istio. One is authentication, which is how it connects to OAuth2 proxy. Well, this is in the dashboard implementation, OAuth2 proxy and DEX. And then there's also for the more important thing, which is actually what we're talking about here, which is routing, which is like
Yeah.
that's all. So that one is fully supported by the generic Kubernetes API, which actually can configure Istio as well, but it also can configure other routing systems, other L7 service mesh kind of things. But the auth piece is the one that's going to make that hard. Like, of course, we can easily make HTTP route on a Kubernetes gateway, but the user that if we make that decision, then we have to effectively say the user has to have created a sidecar system somehow, through whatever means they wish, that will have
Yeah.
injected the token, extracted from whatever the gateway has given it. It will figure out who's talking to it on each request and extract its user ID and inject it into the backend as a header.
Right.
But that's fine. That is a way we can do it, and so that's part of this deploying. I think we come up here. I do want to highlight that this is connected to this task under here, which is we need to have enabling non-Istio deployments. And then effectively, at first, this is just a guide. This is just saying, here are the places where we have injected sidecars that do this. You will have to do the same if you're not using
Yeah.
Istio. If you're using Istio, you can copy what we did. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and that means deploying
I'll
manifests.
put together a few things and like open a discussion by Monday
I
so that we
think,
are starting.
I think Eder had some people internally at Red Hat who were looking at it. I don't know if that was you or if that was someone else.
Yeah, it was me, and then also with those few more people like Edson and people who were
If you
looking
want
at
to,
it.
like, if you want me
I'll
to get
reach out
into
to
a
them.
call to like have a discussion, I'm happy to do
Yeah,
that. Because I really want to
perfect.
move that, like, that piece is critical to the success of Kubeflow notebooks as a standard tool, right? So
Right.
like that's a make or break thing for the whole project. Of course, it's not blocking the first release.
Yeah,
The first release, yeah, sorry, but not the first goal. It is the
yeah,
connecting of Istio is blocking probably the second goal.
right.
That definitely is going to be in the second goal of next month, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, so if we have some time next week or
yeah.
some other
Next week.
time, let's get into a room and just hash it out and try and come to a conclusion. Other people are welcome to come. It doesn't have to be us and Red Hat. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, we
absolutely.
have gone over time. If people have a meeting at 9, they should go. I'm sorry for not quite getting time to the stand up again, as we always don't seem to. Is there anything else, Hashad, you want to add here?
Nothing with respect to this. I think that's what I'll get onto and keep you all updated.
And Jenny, do you want to give a quick update here? Is there anything on this?
Yes. So just continuing with the component hardening and refinement there, I'm working on an issue to knock out that first issue under the features there. It's currently blocked, but working through that with the other team member there as far as how we can unblock that. And then as well, I'll be picking up some issues in the under like UX has taken a look at the UI and they've raised a bunch of issues there with things that we can fix. So based on their official UX recommendations, I'll be working on those enhancements at in that second part of the list. And
Could you
yeah, that's it.
also think about the table columns? So like we already had a lot of like, so these are not right. You know what I mean? Like clearly these are, I don't even think these are up to date, but like we initially even had annotations here, but like thinking about what actually is the minimum columns that need to be at the top surface level for the end user. Obviously like usage of the thing and last usage, which I include in metrics, is critical, but what else, right? Like how do these things work? Images and pod configs, you know, probably they're there, but maybe they shouldn't be, you know, like we have human readable names for each of them, but then people are going to start dynamically like what does it even mean for an image to have, like, what if you have 10 versions of Jupiter with different slight variations in packages and like, what I'm saying is from your perspective, this is a real area for improvement, I think that.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And I think that's one of those things too, where like, is that something that we would discuss with the working group? Because I think we're kind of looking to you for that sort of targeted guidance there for what are the best columns to include there as far as the design.
Well, it's obviously in the long term it will be impacted by the users, but I just wonder if there's any like magical thing we can like. It's just thinking like the end goal of this table. What is it? Well, it's to see the current really running workspaces in your profile, or paused ones as well. And it's like, what do I actually care about? Well, clearly I care about the fact that it exists and doing the actions related to it. But beyond that, what can be pulled off into, you know, is it better to just have like a user free text field for things like, or is it like these pod, like the main ones where I'm like we should just question our assumption about literally every, I mean, these are not the correct columns. I think these are actually not up to date, but like question our assumption about each column being there in the first place, right? Uh,
That makes
and
sense. I think
yeah,
Paulo had mentioned like potentially like paring them down and then putting some more into like an expandable section underneath, like maybe the ones that aren't like necessarily have to be user facing like immediately on that first view. Like we
because
could
like maybe
expand the
the
column.
user has put the name of their notebook or some description of the notebook as the thing that they care about, and then the actual underlying image is less important, And some of this information will be surfaced if we make CPU like include something about the request as well, right? Or uh, and GPUs especially. We'd obviously need to get something about GPUs in the top level, I think. That's kind of my as well.
Okay, so yeah, I think that's a great call out, and that's actually an issue that's part of that big epic that was called out by design. So I think yeah, if that's something that sounds like that'll be good to prioritize next, I'm happy to take that on, and then we can kick off that conversation and figure out sort of what we want to display there. I think that's great.
Yeah, we did have some original annotations, which I wish we'd have fixed the mock-up before we built it, because we would have started from a slightly cleaner place. But um, yeah, I agree that those things are hard to do unless you're fully aware of what the product is and why it exists and things. Anyway, I don't want to keep everyone too long, so let's just anything else that's blocking you right now on your
For me
epic?
specifically,
Yes,
I guess,
or
oh, thank you.
these tasks. These tasks. I mean.
I think, yeah, I think just what you mentioned, I think it's hard to kind of know what the users are expecting there. So just kind of if there's any guidance you can share at the moment for like how we can kind of go about the next steps for that. Is there anything
Well, like
that
I think focus on specific elements. So like and because it's much easier for us to give feedback and get user feedback on things. So like for example, we just talked about volume mounting. Like we could make some mock-ups for what's a great way to mount volumes, or we could make some and then like other than like cleanups and paddings and whatever else you're doing, but like like think about like each kind of sub element of the page as a thing to be optimized and improved. And I think obviously the table is one, the connecting and creating workflows are each element of them are like, okay, well, how do we make like this focus, don't try and solve the whole world, but like start with like the most priority thing, which I think, probably is probably the table and the create workflows. Um, and then so within that, it's like, okay, on the first page of the create workflow, we have a workspace kind select. Okay, so how do we improve that? Is there anything we can do there? Like I don't want to get focused on like paddings and other things like that. It's more like we're still very early, like where the design is more like functional, um, where the design is happening in a functional sense, like where it's what fields are available. You know what I mean? You know, is there a way to make it easier to deal with a large number of options? Is there a way to like, should we be having a grid view for the we've already given the users, like, this is actually something I will highlight, that the options, when you're creating a workspace for image and pod config, we give labels, right? So clearly there should be, like, we have the sidebar label selector right now, but maybe for cases where there is a high dimensionality on a specific label, say Python version or something, uh, or maybe where a label is more like a list element or something, we could like split it, or we don't have a list element array right now, but like, these kind of things where you could think from a user perspective at a specific phase, and maybe we could get feedback. I don't know. So I'm talking a bit too much.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. So yeah, that sounds good. I think, yeah, we'll go about making those changes and then just start to collect feedback incrementally as we're implementing and making those updates. That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, like find a specific, find a specific area and just be like, yeah, we're focusing on that. Or if we have lots of engineers, I don't know how many designers you have available, but like, um, let's try and scope it so we can get feedback from the people who have ideas, and then of course we'll change them once we get actual users. But like, it's cool. Anything blocking
Sounds
you
good.
other than that?
No, that sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hopefully we got maybe like about 5 more minutes. So let's quickly. I don't think there's any other epics here that we've missed, unless I've missed one. And then so stand-ups. Okay. So obviously you guys are doing stuff. Polo. You're working on these UI designs. Sorry, I guess he's probably gone. Oh, no, he's not.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Yeah, I'm working on the UI designs. The only thing I need, I mentioned to you on the Slack message, is about the recording from last meeting because I need to review
yes.
some of the discussion.
Yeah, I'll get that uploaded after this meeting. I'll sit in my next meeting and upload the videos. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I also need to do the community ones as well. People keep messaging me. It's very tedious. Okay. So let's okay. Anything else that's blocked? You're working on these things. Have you talked
Yeah,
to
I'm
Andy about
working on
the thing that we had? Oh, you were on the call last time, yeah.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that's why I need to review it for specifically
Okay, yeah, I'll
this task.
prioritize getting those notebook ones up because we talked a lot. Yeah, I agree. Sorry, that is
Yeah.
important. Again, nothing we say is
Thank you.
gospel. To be clear, like this is a discussion. Like I really want everyone to be like right now. The only reason I end up taking a lot of the direction is just because, well, I did design the product, but more than that, like I just have connection to the people using it, right? And it's like I know why we made these decisions and these things, right? And it's like I'm sure that you guys will also get to that point where, especially when we have users, like never disconnect yourself from the users, right? Like always, when you can actually look at what they do with the product and things like that. But like nothing I say is gospel. If I say something and you think it's wrong, challenge me, please. And I'm not precious about it. This is about making the best product. But have a reason for your idea as well. Don't just be contrarian. Okay, let's so let's keep going, Jenny. Oh, you've already talked really, so I imagine you're doing this.
Yes, yeah, not much to add there outside of those new UX tickets that have been opened there as well. So we'll be starting on those.
Cool. You're on holiday mostly, obviously. Andy, this is quite a lot of tasks, so let's not go super detailed, but
If we have time at the end, I have like 4 quick hitter questions to get thoughts on. But other than that, I have open PRs. I'm getting, they're in various states of review. I'm good.
I do really need to get to another meeting, but
I'll start some stuff on Slack. None of this is pressing. It's more about specking out future, just to get an idea, some future type. One question is pressing. I will start a Slack thread in that. We can hold off on these
other
ones.
Is it something you can ask
for
in
later.
person right now, or is it a longer one?
Yeah, well, yeah. So we do not expose the count, right? So if you look at the CR for workspace, the counts actually exist within the status object, okay? And we obviously need to, that information is not included in the backend API today. The guidance I gave the developer for now as they're exposing this in the backend, just to keep things simple, was copy the structure of what's on the CR into the backend API. Which, there's a justifiable means behind that. But it is kind of weird when you get the responsive get workspaces from the backend API. There's this status object that really is like our metrics or our counts object. I didn't know if you cared or had opinions on what that root level attribute in the get workspace response schema was called.
But wait, so status, what do you mean? Like, so you mean for workspace kind related metrics, or?
Yes, sorry, for workspace kind, to get the count of workspaces. Sorry, I said workspace CR. If you look at the workspace kind CR, that only exists in the status today. Do we want to preserve that structure for alignment or call it something different?
No, don't put it in status. So when you're doing a get on a REST API, it's a blend of both that you would expect to get back, right? That's how we do it for workspace right now. We observe So we have information in the work, for example, in the workspace backend,
Right. Well, but there's just no place where this concept of counts should go right now.
well, there
And
should
so
just be
like
there should be like a metric or
metrics
something.
is okay.
Yeah.
That okay.
Yeah. Or just maybe a field called workspaces, right? And if
Okay,
it's
I wasn't sure
if
if you felt strongly about like a one-to-one alignment on things or
No,
not.
please
So okay,
don't. No. It's about
okay,
think about it the user, right? It's like the reason it's the way that it's done in it's very hard to read in this context, but the reason it's done like this
so yeah, so it's like the struct is called metrics, but then you don't really see the word metric in any of the attributes, and so I wasn't sure if that was like
so
by
be aware
design or
also
something.
to be very clear, you need to however you do it, you need to be aware that in the future these metrics will not apply to all workspace kinds. Right? Yeah, so like there will be workspace kinds of VM type which do not use pods, right? So these
And so then just my last comment here, then, I mean, this is good, but then like right now, the only metrics we have are counts. I don't want to overly nest this thing, but would a metrics sub-attribute counts and then put this information there, or just splat it all flat in metrics to
well, I think there probably needs to be some, as I was saying, at least one level of nesting to indicate what type of kind it is, you know what I mean? Like
right?
where it's like, and so yeah, right. The reason it's only counts is because you have the IDs, right? You can merge it back to the workspace kind that you're already
Right.
inside of if you want to do things. So it's more like maybe this should be, it depends on how it's going to be consumed, right? Like the options presumably are returned in the workspace kind backend API. Maybe it should just be nested under each one. You know what I mean?
Okay, that was the other question we had, and so yeah, it was like, do we want to just include that in there?
Because
If
you're
you're
going to be
happy with
otherwise
that
duplicating
change,
the ID, right? Otherwise the ID is
right?
duplicated.
Yes, it's in right. Yeah, and then you have to like kind of like reconcile that, and yeah, it would be a lot cleaner to just embed them if you're
Yes,
okay
like
with that.
that's probably the simplest way. I don't actually know what the current backend workspace API looks like. Workspace
That's okay.
kind of.
I'll speak with the developer. Actually, they might be on holiday through Monday because they're in Israel. But I will talk with them, and we'll make sure the PR's open and put right in the description what this schema will look like. But that gives me something to go on. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to look at the object, but yeah, I would suspect that like think about it from the perspective of who's using the get. When are you doing a get workspaces kind? Only on the get workspace kind page, right? And therefore,
Yes.
it's to populate a table, right? And so then it's like,
Right. It's like inherently,
what's the
it's all the
fastest way to do
same
that?
concept. Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's like
Cool.
that. And
Perfect. Thank you.
there's also a chance that, almost certainly, actually, just realizing it right now, there should potentially need to be a flag which says, "Don't send me all the options," because what if there's just like an obscene amount of options beyond even like megabytes and megabytes? Oh, maybe it's fine if there's only a couple of workspace kinds. Maybe it's fine. It's fine. Okay, cool. Hashad, last one, and I really need to go, or other people have left actually. So, ooh, okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Hashad, you've already talked about some of your stuff, so that's pretty much what we said already. You're going to review that stuff again. Adriana is not here. Oh, Charles is there.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I was just working on the create workspace kind wizard. Right now I am getting some UX guidance from our designers for the third step at the moment. But yeah, that's what I've been working on at the moment. And those step 1 and step 2 are in review. I will fix the reviews when I haven't checked out the review from Paulo yet.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
But yeah.
That sounds great. Obviously, you'll need a back-end stuff for all that. Anything that's
Yeah.
blocking you?
No, just like the US consultation is the UX consultation is going on because what I created is really junky and ugly for the step 3. So I'm just getting some help.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And then this person's not here, but they were working on some kind of delete workspace API. Okay, cool. I'm gonna go. I need to go. So I'm gonna stop the recording. Thanks, everyone. So let's stop the recording. Thanks.